American Giant makes great clothing, sweatshirts, jeans, and more right here in the U.S. Visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order with code STAPLE20. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com, code STAPLE20.
This is VSiN By The Books on VSiN, the sports betting network.
We begin hour number 3. VSiN By The Books. Dave Ross here. Circus Sports, fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. He's our closer. Jensen Lewis back home in Cleveland, Ohio. Got a great hour number 3 lined up for you today. Of course, Wes Rynolds is going to join us to break down the RBC Heritage. And we're going to have Zach Cohen join us here as well as we get into the second season of the NBA. The play-in games here to finally formalize our playoff seedings. But a lot of draft talk. We had John Daigle on in hour number 2. We have guests each and every day leading up to the NFL draft next Thursday. And it is fascinating when you start to look at where teams are and where we, quote-unquote, think the draft may begin. How about the Jets at 7? Aaron Glenn, good luck. You played for this team. You're taking over a complete dumpster fire. It's in the wake of Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh and the front office. I mean, everything that could go wrong last year did. And now you are the guy that's got to pick up the pieces. You got the 7th overall pick. That's nice. You got a new front office. Hopefully that's nice. 5.5 is a win total. It's juiced to the over at minus $1.45. You got a new quarterback in Justin Fields. Find out how that looks. At 7, what do you think this team is going to do? Because there's been so much upheaval from this time last year. It feels like truly a whole new team and potential roster.
Yeah, and rebuild is probably where you're at. Justin Fields, the short little 2-year deal to come in and at least have some competency at quarterback. And I say that lightly, but maybe not so after we saw what Aaron Rodgers did. All right, so he just came from Detroit. Hallmarks up there, right? Defense and run game. And so what was a major issue for the Jets last year and why Aaron Rodgers was on his back a lot, the offensive line. And so why you see a lot of these mock drafts, Armand Membu out of Missouri has been the most popular guy. Dave, let me throw a couple of ideas at you and let me get your organic feedback on just pick number 7. So if they don't go with Membu or, an offensive lineman right there, do you end up going to the defensive side? And, we had John Daigle talk about where Jalen Walker has been in a lot of mocks down there for Carolina at number 8, just right below them. Would you rather go there, or would you rather kind of get that offensive line going in the right direction? You have Breece Hall, obviously, in that backfield. Justin Fields is going to be able to be a bit more mobile, so you're not as worried about the pocket passer presence. Say that 5 times fast as Aaron Rodgers was. But I think that is, if you're building it, and we saw what the success rate was with a stout offensive line in Detroit, he's Sonic and Knuckles. He doesn't have that by far. He has one asset there in Breece Hall. But to me, you either go with the offensive tackle or you go with the edge rusher there in where, you're seeing Jalen Walker potentially to 8 there with Carolina.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. And again, in that conversation we had with John Daigle, if the Raiders at 6, a lot of this could be predicated for the Jets at 7, what they end up doing, obviously. And again, a lot of that talk about Ashton Jeanty, you don't think they'd be in play with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen in that backfield. Feel like you got pretty good depth there. But you start to get in that question of best available. I'm not saying Jeanty would be the best available at 7, but we talk about those trade spots. And kind of what I floated out there to John, I'll float it out to you as well, Jensen. If you're sitting there and Genty's still on the board at 7, and you know the Bears, more than likely that's the guy they want. Do you call either Chicago or somebody else and say, hey, we're probably not in the field for him? But you can't say that because that gives away the leverage, I guess. But say, hey, do you really want this kid? Because, Breece has been injury prone last couple of years. You could always get younger at the running back position. Like, that best available. I wonder if that could play into the Jeanty sweepstakes here if you're another team for the Jets to potentially trade out.
Okay, so let me take it. The first thing that came to mind, who would you envision that the Raiders would need to take that Jeanty remains available and then the Jets seriously consider moving back?
Let's say the Raiders then go wide out. And again, It doesn't feel like this is a heavy early wide out draft.
Sure.
It does feel like that could be a need there, certainly for the Raiders. But if they shock us, they've shocked us before. Certainly, God rest his soul, in the Al Davis days, I think that the drafts might have been a little bit more shocking than maybe they might be here with Tom Brady in that war room with Pete Carroll. But if they do that, something along those lines, I wonder if then Genty starts to go, man, he's not getting past 10. So, again, that's where we could trade up. But I guess if you're the Jets, you have to play that guessing game, right? What are the Raiders going to do right ahead of us at 6 before we know what we're going to have at 7?
So if you're thinking the shock would be Ted McMillan there at 6. Let's use the best receiver on the board at this point. And I think that is certainly a scenario that could present itself if the shock and awe campaign comes through. How far back, if you're the Jets, if you want to trade back, do you have to go to 10 and that's as far as you go back? Or do you dangle it in front of anyone else there to try and jump up to see if you can get a sweeter package?
And that's, I guess that question would have to be answered. What do the Jets truly want? Because if they do want a wide out, and let's say like that's where if the Raiders hopped up in front of them and took a wide out, then they go, oh man, there goes our value at 7, getting the best wide receiver available. You know how these runs typically can start with positional needs. And they go, well, we didn't get our guy. Could you drop? Because we had Matt Humans on the program yesterday. He thinks the Cowboys might go receiver at 12, right? So like, it's if I want that guy, I really can't go past 11. If the Cowboys are looking at a receiver at 12, these are the type of games you have to play with what position you really want. You're right. They certainly could use offensive line help, but that wide receiver, and I know Garrett Wilson's been good, but you move Tay, he's gone. He's now with the Rams. So all of a sudden, is Garrett Wilson still your elite number 1? Would you like to get another one to have a 1 and a 1A? It feels like it makes sense for the Jets to get a wide receiver. Is that too high to take at 7? Or if they get usurped at 6, that they move back to get maybe talented receiver out of Texas we talked about and move on with the board at that point. I could see that type of scenario playing out, Jensen, where they move back to about 11 and still try to get their wide receiver there.
So for me, I would want Membu. I would want that line to get right. You start building, and I think it's the recency bias for me. Is what that group just saw in Detroit, and honestly, Aaron Glenn knows what works, especially if it's going to work in the NFC. Look at your opponents and what you're going to have to somehow you're going to have to keep the ball away from Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, not only this year, but in years to come. How do you do that? Ball control. You have to have a great offensive line. You build it from the left side. And hey, I think also looking back, we look at the other draft picks they have. They're at 42 in round 2. They could move back up if they wanted to. You're also looking at, and God, a lot of smoke has been around Will Howard. Mm-hmm. All right. You're thinking of round 3 in where Justin Fields, just by the contract alone, is not your long-term answer. You have another Ohio State product come in, learn the offense, kind of learn, what they want to do. And if there is an injury, at least from a competency standpoint, to get the ball out and still have that running angle available. Remember, the mobility of Will Howard was a huge deal for Ohio State in their run to the national title. That's still a great little value option later in that draft, perhaps as early as round 3. But first and foremost, you got to protect the quarterback, right?
Yep.
You've got to have the opportunity to move the football. They've got the running back figured out. So why not address that offensive line and take Armand Membu at 7?
For an O-lineman to be drafted first, no matter where they take it, whether it's 7 or they trade down, that's minus $1.25 right now with where they stay at 7. Tight end is the second betting option at 3-1. Tyler Warren, that would seem like that would be that spot. Tyler Warren's prop is sitting at 9.5, so do that math. D-line or edge is plus 750. Wide receiver is the fourth betting choice. I think that's only in play if they trade down in that hypothetical we just gave you. If they trade down, I think that 10-1 number gets shorted, and all of a sudden that moves up. Here's what's interesting to me. Also at 10-1, to be the first pick wherever they pick in the first round, quarterback. Like, could you see them if they trade?
Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart.
How about that? Like, could you see a scenario, again, 10-1 is not that long, that their first position. If they move out of this spot at 7, they could go, man, we'll see what the wide receiver run looks like. But if we're not down in the middle of the first round, couldn't you see a Jackson Dart if they go, hey, we gave Fields a 2-year deal? That doesn't mean we're married to the guy. The other guy we have is Tyrod Taylor. We know he's not the future. That they could really be looking at quarterback somewhere down the board in the first round if they trade down. Yeah,
because then that would set up, and you hope he's available, because let's assume your Cowboys take Ted McMillan there at 12. If Matthew Golden from Texas is still available in rounds, I mean, you almost have that sweet spot now where Garrett Wilson one side, Golden the other side, Breece Hall is your running back. You still got to address the offensive line, but at least from an explosion standpoint, Jets look a lot more serviceable than what they did last year.
Yeah, I would not play those wide receiver 10-1 or quarterback numbers at 10-1 unless you are convinced they're going to trade out of that spot, which they could do. Mm-hmm. But you're right. If they start to say, hey, the board's going the way we want, we got to get an offensive lineman, that's why it's priced accordingly at -$1.25. But if they trade down, those other numbers are going to come into play here at QB and or wide receiver. And can Golden Cowboys take Golden at 12? Let's take Golden at 12, and everybody's happy. Put him opposite CeeDee Lamb, and everybody's happy down there in Big D. You're going to be much happier as a better if you become a VSiN Pro subscriber. $59 covers you all the way through August 1st. Daily best bets, exclusive betting splits, expert analysis, betting systems. It's our summer special, but summer is going to be here and gone before you know it as well. So get it now while you have the chance. VSiN.com/subscribe. That's going to keep you covered all the way through August 1st. When we come back, let's talk some golf with maybe the best around. That's Wes Rynolds next here on VSiN By The Books.
These days, work is in trouble. We've outsourced most of our manufacturing to other countries. And with that, we sent away good jobs and our capability to make things. American Giant is a clothing company that's pushing back against this tide. They make all kinds of high-quality clothing and activewear, like sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more, right here in the USA. So when you buy American Giant, you create jobs in towns and cities across the country. And jobs bring pride. Purpose. They stitch people together. If all that sounds good to you, visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com with promo code STAPLE20.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
You're tuned in to VSiN By The Books, right here on VSiN.
We continue the Wednesday edition of VSiN By The Books. Dave Ross, Jensen Lewis. We always love catching up Wednesdays with Wes here on the network. The great Wes Rynolds joins us now at Wes Rynolds 1 is where you can follow him on X. And again, joins us here in the Progressive Guest Line. Wes, I got to ask you before we look ahead to the RBC this week here at the Heritage, signature event on tour, your thoughts of what you saw at Augusta. I know you and the Long Shots crew, great job as you always do. What'd you make of it? And I know we're all happy for Rory. That's obviously the biggest takeaway. What did you say of Scotty? Was he sick? And if he was, he still was only 3 shots back.
Yeah, look, it was a great major. I think I've been asked about this in a couple interviews this week. You know, where does it rank? It certainly ranks like top 5, I think, for a golf major that I've ever seen. Of course, we remember Tiger in 2019 emerging from that pack to win the Masters. Sink versus Watson in 2009 at Turnberry at the Open, the 86 Masters. So it's certainly for being memorable and so many twists and turns in the story. I think that it was probably one of the top ones, and was very happy for Rory. I think it was a long time coming. What they say, 11th time is a charm,
wow.
and it certainly was to complete the career Grand Slam. But the fact of the matter is, when we were enjoying the round and he was up by 5 shots, we were starting to get the Vince Carter "it's over" memes there on social. And it was like, no, it's not. Something's going to happen. I've been down this road with Rory before. He never necessarily makes it easy. So, and he did not. And then Bryson kind of went away on the back 9. Scotty never made a move. Ludwig tried, but then had a triple bogey finish. And then it was he and Justin Rose. And I got to give Justin Rose a lot of credit because he fought back. He was 7 back with, I think, like 8 holes to play.
Wow.
Of Rory when Rory was 14 under. And then all of a sudden he emerges in the playoffs and takes another. I hope Rose gets one before the end of his career. He gets another major championship because I think that's now 4 runner-ups when you combine the Masters and, of course, the Open. So very well done by Rory. He becomes, I think, at least the greatest European player ever. And we'll see what the benchmark is. Well, it's a benchmark now he has to create. It's now not the rest of us saying, okay, when are you going to win the career Grand Slam? So is the benchmark, hey, I'm going to get to 10 majors? Or what is it going to be? I know Patty Harrington was on some outlets yesterday talking about this. So it'll be interesting. Is the pressure off and now he just goes ahead and wins a few more? Or does complacency and contentment set in where it's like, I finally accomplished that. I'm good. Whatever happens after that happens. So it'll be interesting to see. I kind of think Rory's a little bit more of the former, that he's still going to be really, really driven.
Yeah, I would agree, Wes. And as you said, getting harder and harder to root against the Europeans, especially with the nice guys when it comes Ryder Cup time, because there have been so many good dudes now. And, of course, Rory winning the Masters here as well. All right, we head to Harbor Town this week. You have 5 outrights that you have on VSiN.com. Dave and I have talked to Patrick Cantlay. Even though he doesn't sign autographs after practice rounds for little kids, it seems as though he's dialed in a little bit for this week. You got him at 20-1 on DK. I think he's down to 18-1 at this point. Your assessment of the top of the board here for the favorites, as well as Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah, Patrick Cantlay is not exactly the sweetheart of Sigma Chi, shall we say? I think to a lot of the fans and maybe a lot of his competitors, to be honest with you. And I wonder if that's karma and reason why he hadn't won in 2.5 years. So he's trying to get up the schneid. If he does, this would be the place you would think he would do it. If you look at his form line, third, second, missed the cut 1 year, third, 7th, and 3rd. So really strong record on Pete Dye designs. And I think, I know he's kind of a low price, but he is because there's only 71 players in this field. So Patrick Cantlay, another guy, Colin Morikawa, he hasn't won in about 1.5 years or so. So he's trying to break his own winless drought. But by the way, Morikawa, who never really made a move or was in contention over the weekend, he was on one of my outright positions last week. 3rd overall in ball striking off the tee plus approach, and that was just behind Rory and Rose, who of course were the 2 playoff participants. So this would be a perfect course. Like, this is a ball striker course. This is a course where you don't have to take driver off the tee, and in fact, it doesn't let you take driver off the tee because these are dog leg holes, and you can't just overpower it and cut the dog legs here. And that's what Pete Dye does. He wants you to, risk reward, where he wants you to hit it toward what is the obstacle, whether it's a bunker, whether it's a water hazard, or trees or a tight fairway. He wants you to hit it towards that because it makes the second shot easier. If you play on the safe side, the approach shot actually ends up being harder.
Wes, it's interesting, those prickly Americans with Kyle Morikawa and certainly Patrick Cantlay. I don't know why those guys have taken that path, but they have. I'm looking at a couple of Euros that I want to get your opinion on that had terrible, at least, ends to their rounds. Shane Lowry, a disaster on Sunday at Augusta. We never even saw him on the TV coverage. And you mentioned the big Swede in Ludwig, who had that bad 3-putt bogey on 17, then the triple on 18. With their guys, both those guys on the first page of the leaderboard here, at least in the odds board, do we expect them to contend again this week? Do they turn the page from that bad Sunday, or do you have worries that there's a hangover effect?
Well, on Shane Lowry's side, he does have a couple thirds here, so he was somebody I actually did consider playing. And maybe there's something to that, and I did use that for one other player where, hey, your mate finally did it. Your buddy finally did it. He completed the career grand slam. It's been weighing on him for so long, and it's like, that's what I said after Sunday's round. Find you a ride or die like Shane Lowry. He was right there for his guy. Like, Lowry shot 81 at the Masters in the final round, because remember, he was on the periphery of contention on Saturday and shot 81. The last thing you want to do is stick around. You want to leave and go off to the next tournament or wherever you go, and he stuck around to greet Rory with that bear hug around the green. In terms of Ludwig, I did not play him this week. I think he's close, though. I think he's going to win probably another event and make it a multiple win year for him, because he's already won the Genesis. But the other guy that was waiting next to Shane Lowry when Rory stepped off the green was one Tommy Fleetwood. And Tommy Fleetwood's kind of got his own albatross on his back, because he's not won in the United States. He's still looking for that first PGA Tour victory. It's the guy that's won 7 times on the DP World Tour, has been ranked in the top 10 in the official world golf rankings. So T21 last week for Fleetwood, but he was third in the field in strokes gained tee to green behind McIlroy and behind Patrick Reed, who ends up finishing third. And maybe seeing Rory get that monkey off his back is kind of that small boost or that little extra oomph that he needs here at RBC Heritage. So Tommy Fleetwood, 33-1 for me.
Wes, last one from me, and a little bit farther down the board for you. Two guys, Sung Jae Im and Daniel Berger, 40 and 51 respectively. You got the numbers at. I did write down Sung Jae at plus 280 on DraftKings as a top 10, including ties. Obviously, the steady play and knowing that he's got strong irons, and really loved how he kind of closed his Masters tournament as well. Give us your assessments on those guys and potential placement markets as well.
Yeah, Sung Jae was 5th last week. He really didn't get a lot out of his ball striking until the final round on Sunday. Form's pretty good here at Harbortown, 13th, 21st, 7th, and 12th, respectively, on 4 visits. He's got 3 top 5s now this season, and he's got a winless spell on the PGA Tour. He hasn't won, I think, since Summerlin here for the Shriners in Las Vegas since about 3.5 years ago. He did win twice on the Korean Tour back home each of the last 2 years, but Sung Jae at 40-1. I considered Sepp Straka at that same price. I went with Sung Jae, so let's see if I picked the right guy, at least at that price range. And then Daniel Berger, 50-1, 21st last week at the Masters, but he's 6th for greens in regulation. These greens, by the way, are very small here. These dome-shaped Pete Dye vintage greens, about 3,700 square feet on average. So these are not the easiest ones to hit. He was 3rd here at Harbortown in 2020, and if you look at that Daniel Berger profile, and I know I've been playing him a lot this year, and he's been falling short, even though I think he's getting closer and closer. The 3 times he's won on the PGA Tour, he won at Southwind in Memphis, he won at Pebble Beach, and he won at Colonial. All of those courses are a little bit shorter, on the shorter sides for yardage. This is about right at 7,200 yards, by the way, at Harbortown. And they're more technical, so it caters a little bit more to ball strikers. These are not courses that you necessarily can overpower. You can score here, but you can't just overpower them and, grip it and rip it like you could maybe at Augusta or at Houston a couple weeks ago. So Daniel Berger, those really good iron players this week, I think this is their week to flourish.
All right, about 30 seconds to go. I'm sure you heard it too, because I heard Rory when he's wearing that green jacket talk a lot about the Ryder Cup. We're still $1.45 betting favorites. I know everybody's going to be talking about football come the fall. Europe, they've got the cup. They're plus $1.50. If you want to tie and the Euros retain the cup, it's 12-1. We don't even know who's going to be on the team yet. Should we be almost $1.50 betting favorite over the Euros?
Absolutely not. I don't think. I think, and you saw that camaraderie with those guys around Rory when he got his career milestone accomplishment. There's that little reason why they've owned this for about the past 25 years or so, for the most part. I think their team, the bulk of their talent roster is pretty much set. With the Americans, we have no idea, so probably should not be at this point.
Yeah, we don't. We have. Is Bryson DeChambeau going to be on the team? We have no idea. Wes, you're the best. We appreciate it. Give him a follow. Wes Rynolds and the number 1. Zachary Cohen next, talking NBA here on VSiN By The Books.
You're tuned in to VSiN By The Books right here on VSiN.
We are back, VSiN By The Books on this Wednesday edition. Great conversation. Wes Rynolds talking all things golf in the last segment. Always a pleasure to be joined by our senior writer here and editor at VSiN.com, Zach Cohen. You can follow him as we do with the best handle on X. It's betting on X. Joins us now on the Progressive Guest Line. Zach, how excited are you now that we're into the second season, if you will? Obviously, it's still the play-ins to get the playoffs formalized. But last night, you could kind of feel it in that Memphis and Golden State game. I mean, you can't get the ball inbounded down 3 with 5 seconds, and you get a 5-second call to potentially end your season. We'll figure out if they can get it done. But you start to see that stress level kind of bubble up here as we get to the more important games.
Yeah, I thought last night was about as good of a representation of the NBA as you can get. It was a really exciting game that I thought was partially ruined by the officials. Like, that is NBA basketball at its finest. But I do think it was a good taste of it for, people that are really sour on the product. I think that was a really fun game. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. Maybe not tonight. I could do without the 9 versus 10 games, although I do think Heat Bulls will be fun. I just think that these teams don't really stand a chance in their next series.
Yeah, Zach, full snoozer in the Magic and Hawks game. I had to turn over to my Columbus Blue Jackets to get a little heartbeat going for that one. Okay, speaking of heartbeat, I told you before we came on, I feel like there are some underdog series prices that make a lot of sense, and just because of where the matchups may end up playing out. Let's start with the Lakers and the Timberwolves. Jonathan Von Tobel has been with us the last handful of weeks, and I know you've talked about them as well. Maybe their seeding number is not indicative of the quality that this opponent or this team could be. Tricky series for the Lakers as the favorite. Where do you have this series in your mind, and who ends up winning it?
I like the Timberwolves. Look, I think this is probably going to be a 7-game series that I really think is a little bit closer to a true 50-50 than the odds suggest. I think that you kind of have to pay a tax to take the Lakers. It's just such a popular team that we saw it opened up at -160. It got bet up to -200. I think I saw a tweet that 99% of the bets at BetMGM are on Los Angeles. I just think that you're kind of paying a price to take the more popular team. But the Timberwolves, since the start of December, have been one of the best teams in the league. I think pretty much every advanced statistic you could find would favor Minnesota in terms of points per 100 possessions, points allowed per 100 possessions. And I do think that the matchups are pretty strong for the Timberwolves. I know, obviously, there's a big Luka Doncic problem in this series. They did not have anybody that could cover him last year. I don't think the Lakers have anybody that can cover Anthony Edwards. And I spoke to Kelly Bidlin about this a little bit earlier yesterday, but Edwards to lead the series in scoring or something seems like a really good player prop to look at, just because the Lakers have no rim protection. I don't think they have, a perimeter defender with the foot speed of like a Derrick Jones Jr. from last year who shut down Edwards. I don't see anybody on this Lakers team being able to slow him down.
Yeah, the over right now, 5.5 games, it's juiced heavily to the over at $1.75, which is kind of interesting because that's lending and leading you saying that the T-Wolves are probably going to win 2 games. So why would you then lay $2 with the Lakers if the propensity here, at least in the betting market, says it's going to be a longer series? I don't think we're going to get that with the Celtics and the Magic. You got to lay 6,000 in the series price to win 100 if you want to bet the C's here. The comeback in the Magic is 16-1. How would you attack this series? Do they have any chance of winning a game? Because a sweep, Zach, is plus $1.05 for Boston. And if you want to go Boston 4-1 in that gentleman's sweep, that's a plus $1.85.
Yeah, I wish I could say there was any value betting this series. I really just don't think that there is, because I think Boston to sweep is probably the most likely scenario. Having said that, there is the Jaylen Brown uncertainty with his knee. I do think we've seen in the past that this team can struggle to get up 4 games. So I think maybe, if anything, the best way to go is with the 4-1 at plus 185 and just put a little something on it. But it's not one that I would confidently play.
Zach, we saw that the Warriors got through last night, even after blowing a 20-point lead. And now I remember, I think Tim Murray had posted it yesterday with Matty Humans on Primetime that there was the expectation that if the Warriors won, they'd be almost a $2 favorite on the series price over the number 2 seed. Let me repeat that. The number 2 seed, Houston Rockets. I think you had said before you came on, we had found prices north of maybe plus $1.85, plus $2 for the Rockets to win the series. What am I missing, Zach?
I love the Rockets in this series. I actually think that Houston probably wanted to see Golden State. I just think their sheer size and athleticism is going to give Golden State a lot of problems. It kind of reminds me of last year when my Suns took on the Timberwolves and everyone kind of picked Phoenix to win, but they were just looked really old and small once they finally got on the court. I think that the Rockets double big lineup of Steven Adams and Alperen Sengun is really going to overwhelm the Warriors. We have seen this team now get dominated by every opposing center they have played, but I also think Houston has, the perimeter defenders that they need to kind of slow down the Warriors, with Amen Thompson being out there to guard Curry, who did a really good job on him 2 weeks ago when they played. And I think Dylan Brooks is a player that can match the physicality of Jimmy Butler. I obviously understand, maybe the shortcomings with Houston when you're talking about, a late shot clock guy that could score the basketball, but I think that this was a really good matchup for them to get. I would have felt worse about a Memphis matchup for them.
You look at the exacta prices here, right, get this series correct. If you look at Golden State in 6, that's the shortest number on the board at plus 280, because obviously with Houston having home court, theoretically that means you get it done, you close it out back at Golden State. Do you see that if you, instead of laying the two, if you want to back Golden State, I know you're not, but if there are Golden State backers out there, would that be the better way to attack it instead of laying the $2, is to play that series score and say, hey, they get it done, it's in 6. And by the way, if you get to a game 7, you could have some hedgeable scenarios or maybe take some points either way, depending what those numbers look like, instead of laying the $2 on Golden State to win the series.
Yeah, either that or you parlay it with another series you like that's an unfavorable price. I wouldn't really want to lay minus 200. I do think that if we do get a game 7 in this series, maybe that's where the experience of Golden State kicks in. But I like the Rockets to win the series, and I think I'm going to be looking at minus 1.5 games too, which is probably out there at like plus 300.
Zach, in the Eastern Conference, Pacers and Bucks, I think that the heart of me, knowing that my compadre Dave Ross has tried to advocate so much for Giannis single-handedly, even without Damian Lillard, we'll kind of wait and see.
If he's the best player in the world.
I'm just saying, okay, these two teams, is this just kind of the back and forth? Do we play ping pong in the series, or can the Bucks kind of find a way to get past Indiana? I know you focused on Indiana as maybe one of those sleeper teams in weeks past. How do we kind of handicap this series, and the winner of this series, what's the realistic chance they can have any resistance against the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Yeah, I don't think the Bucks have a real shot in this series. And honestly, I think I would have thought that even if I knew Damian Lillard was playing in game 1. I just don't like the way that this Milwaukee team is constructed right now. I think they're relying on a little too many unproven players. Like Taurean Prince is a guy that really should be your 7th and 8th guy in a rotation, but they rely on him as a 3rd or 4th option. I think that this Pacers team is also just very underrated, as I have mentioned on this show before. I just think Indiana has been the 3rd best team in the East all year. I think that they have the potential to give Cleveland some problems in round 2. So I know that I kind of like the Cavaliers to win that series, but I do think it'd be close enough that if you wanted to take the Pacers to, win the Eastern Conference, like maybe you can get some value there at 17-1, that if it's late in that series, they're going to have a shot at making the Eastern Conference Finals. There's some value in that ticket.
Is it too late to trade back for Chris Middleton? I don't think they can do that. What about tonight here? You mentioned the Heat and the Bulls. Bulls are laying a point here in this play-in scenario here. Total sitting, around 219 is what we're seeing here. What do you make of Chicago tonight? Because I feel like that feels like a playable number if I'm just going to lay 1 at home for a team they had a lot of success against in the regular season.
Yeah, I didn't end up playing this myself, but I do think that the Bulls are the right side if you want to play this game. I just think Chicago has a little more firepower on the outside with Josh Giddey, Kobe White, and I do think Nikola Vucevic kind of gets up for the matchup with Bam Adebayo. I think it's a guy that, he doesn't really have to go out on the perimeter and guard very much. He's going to take a lot of turnaround mid-range jumpers and kind of let Vooch off the hook for being, a slow-footed defender. And I do think that this Bulls team is a little bit more excited about where they are than the Heat are. I know that Miami made a midseason trade with Jimmy Butler. Maybe that reset expectations, but it does feel like this would mean more to Chicago than it would Miami just getting into the, 7 versus 8 game the 8 versus 9 game. And then I do think that playing in Chicago will help, where the Bulls fans have kind of taken a liking to this team.
Zach, last one from me. Of the first round series matchups, once we get through Friday and we have the field set, the series you're most focused on that has the best upset potential, not only for the first round, but a team that could win their next series and maybe cause some havoc?
I mean, I grabbed the Clippers at plus 120, and I do think that the Clippers are very live in the Western Conference in that second round series against the Thunder. I think they have a much better shot than people think. If you sort with cleaning the glass from March 1st on, in terms of points per 100 possessions and points allowed per 100 possessions, there were 3 teams in the league with an efficiency differential of plus 12 or better. That was Boston, Oklahoma City, and Los Angeles. I think that the Clippers are very, very good and a real threat to win the NBA title. It's just a matter of Kawhi Leonard staying healthy, and I do like the matchup with Denver, and I like them in round 2.
Love the Jordan mural behind you, too, by the way. This badass shoe. Zach, we appreciate it, man. We're fired up for the second season. I know you are, too. Give him a follow on X at Betting on X. Everybody, very quickly, check out Edge Boost if you haven't done so yet. It's the first ever bank account built just for bettors. It ensures all your gambling transactions are approved. Sign up today. EdgeBoost.bet. Use the promo code BOOK, name of the show. Deposit $25. Edge Boost will match that deposit. That's EdgeBoost.bet. Our best bets straight ahead.
American Giant makes great clothing, sweatshirts, jeans, and more right here in the U.S. Visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order with code STAPLE20. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com, code STAPLE20.
You're tuned in to VSiN By The Books, right here on VSiN.
We are back. VSiN By The Books. Great conversation. Zach Cohen and Wes Rynolds, of course, in this hour. John Daigle talking a lot of NFL draft. Again, VSiN Pro subscribers, you missed any of those fine conversations, check it out in your time. Download the VSiN Watch app if you have not done so as of yet. Let's get to our best bets. They are brought to us by GBank, the official bank of VSiN. And Jensen, when we workshop a lot of this stuff, whether it's golf, whether it's basketball, or certainly the NFL draft, any more actionable plays, certainly in the draft side, that we're leaning towards after these conversations we've had for the last 3 days?
I think I'll probably keep the powder dry until maybe we get to Monday morning, maybe Sunday night, just you start to get a little bit more of that information coming out. I think the one I really want to jump into is the comparative pricing of the first round picks, because obviously, it's Thursday where everyone will be tuned in. Some intriguing numbers for you. We talked about Jackson Dart to be drafted in the first round, minus 425. Some of the names that are right on the edge here. So Travion Henderson, you brought up Ashton Jonty. Mm-hmm. Travion Henderson, minus $1.05. So basically flip a coin. If he's going in the first round, he feels like an end of the first round guy, right? Just one of those situations. Emeka Egbuka has been really talked about in Cleveland as potentially their first pick in the second round. He's minus $1.80 to go in the first round. Jalen Milroe, you're talking about other, quarterbacks down the line here, plus $1.30. To go in the first round. I was thinking also wide receivers. Luther Burden the third, 2-1 right now to go in the first round out of Missouri. Had some injuries to overcome there. I don't think, and let me see if I can do it here. If you were to try and, you can actually do it. On DraftKings, you can parlay guys to go in the first round. So I just threw 2 in here. Omari and Hampton, who we believe will be one of those running backs taken. Jackson Dart. Both those guys to go in the first round parlayed, minus $2.86. Just intriguing stuff to kind of play around with here and look at. But yeah, I'll probably wait until Sunday night to see if there's any more information that kind of comes out.
And this is something, again, not just on our show, but on every show on the network, really good at trying to find similar bets that you can make for better prices. So you mentioned Travion Henderson, right? If you believe he's going to go and you believe that the talented running back out of Carolina is going to go in the first round, we all know Boise State running backs going in Genty. You could look at the over for the number of running backs to be selected in the first round. If you think Henderson's going to be a first-round pick, that's plus money, plus $1.10 for total number of running backs over 2.5. The under, it's juiced to the under, by the way, at $1.35. So if Henderson can slide into the back end of the first round, then that over is going to hit, you would think, at plus $1.10 if you're going to get 3 or more. I'm not convinced that's going to happen. I think that's why that number is where it's sitting at. But again, where does Genty go? If he goes early in the first round, then maybe the other running backs come off a little bit earlier than we suspected. Remember Jahmyr Gibbs a couple years ago where he was kind of projected to be a late first-round pick. And then Dan Campbell, they moved up in the draft. They took him, I believe they took him 12 overall with Detroit. And everybody's like, whoa, what are you doing? How can you take a running back in Jahmyr Gibbs that high? You look back a couple years later and go, hey, they knew exactly what they were doing. So that'll be the interesting thing in the running back position, how it's valued now, if it's been revalued, because I think it was devalued for a number of years in the NFL draft. That'll be interesting to me if you get 3 in that first round, something we'll talk a little bit about and workshop with other teams, because we're going to hit every single team in the NFL draft before we get to next Thursday. Let's get to baseball today. I know you do have a play that's already in pocket, and the Rays, a full fade on April 15th. What about on April 16th?
Yeah, we'll fade him again. Sean Newcomb against Zach Littell tonight in Tampa at George Steinbrenner Field. I got it at plus 124. It's already down to plus 120. Again, full slate headed today through Major League Baseball. We get 4 day games. As I mentioned on Daily Diamond with Wednesday, we get Spencer Strider, the debut for the Braves. But yeah, this Red Sox game, just again, you had Alex Bregman first 5. How about this? Alex Bregman in his career had not had a 5-hit game until yesterday. Also got a homer as well. Red Sox starting to round into form here a little bit, but do like them on the money line, plus 124 down to plus 120 now at DraftKings.
First pitch will be north of the border in Toronto to kick off the slate today. Chris Bassett against Spencer Strider. Strider making his long-awaited debut. You mentioned earlier in the program, not a bad bet to maybe have Strider in pocket 20-1 to win Cy Young, sight unseen. What do you think you'll see from Spencer today?
I obviously first start, he'll be on a pitch count. I think it won't be divulged at all. I would be 80, 85, I think is probably where I would go. And it's how he gets there, right? I don't think they're going to let him struggle through maybe a 3rd or 4th inning. I think they would rather get him out of there than add stress. No point in really doing that in start 1, even in the first 3 starts, probably. I think if you're looking at props for Spencer Strider, in these first couple of times around the rotation, I would stay away. Just they're going to want to protect him at every single turn. So just great from a morale standpoint to get him back. The Braves have needed it. 5-12 their record. They're in-house. They are way better than what their record says they are. They need a jolt. Hopefully he provides that for them this afternoon.
We did see a streak come to an end yesterday. The Padres home winning streak. The Cubs get him in extras last night, 2-1. Matthew Boyd's going to be in the bump today against Nick Pivetta. Again, these are going to be earlier starts here on this Wednesday, which getaway day here. $1.25 for the Padres. Come back in the Cubs, plus $1.05. 12 wins already in pocket for the Cubs. A great start after being 0-3 to begin the year. What do you make of the Cubs? Can they do it 2 in a row in San Diego?
Yeah, anxious to see what the lineups are tonight. You mentioned the pitching matchup here, and I think for the Padres overall, what a really intriguing start to the season, knowing that all the focus was going to be on the LA Dodgers. Yeah. Padres were a playoff team in my projections. Did take them 13-1 to win the National League, so off to a great start at this point. I think the thing you look at is understanding too, where do the Cubs in this offense continue to be able to lengthen, and they've been really, really solid thus far. Also, the injury to Justin Steele. That is massive in the long-term look for where you are as a Cubs bettor, perhaps in the futures market. So Carter Hawkins, Jed Hoyer in that front office, will they be willing to shop maybe earlier than expected for a frontline starter? Because if the Cubs continue at this pace, Dave, the offense has really been the big surprise. I think at the bottom of the order, we know Kyle Tucker in a walk year was going to really come out in force, but I think it's the rotation depth. Are they able to get reinforcements there, whether it's internally, whether it's outside? Because not about just getting in the tournament. You got to look at the top-heavy nature of the National League. Dodgers, Padres, Phillies, Mets, eventually the Braves. It's not about winning the division. It's about advancing in the tournament. That's what their long-term focus has to be. Any
change for the earlier start, that total sitting at 7.5, just in general for these teams that, like, I know kind of Oakland back when they played there, obviously, and they're Sacramento now, you'd kind of look to overs for day games and maybe unders at night games. Is there anything to that when you play at Petco earlier in the day versus later?
Still pretty spacious, between Petco and at points in the past at T-Mobile Ballpark there in Seattle. It's very spacious for pitchers. So again, anything down the lines, especially down the left field line in San Diego with the lower fence, if you will, and the shorter dimension there. Grip and rip is always something you think about, especially with a lefty on the mound. So you're targeting Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado. As I said, anxious to see what lineups are here for getaway day. See if any of the regulars get a day off or so. But good little afternoon affair there, Eastern time there for the Cubs and the Padres.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see that one. Feels like heavy hitters right now, certainly in their respective divisions. G-Bank, of course, is up in the ante, up to a $750 bonus for new G-Bank Visa Signature Card customers. New customers who spend $1,000 on eligible purchases within 90 days from opening up their account, they're going to get $250 right off the bat. In addition, if you spend $50K on gaming and sports app loads within the first 30 days of opening said account, you're going to get another $500 bonus. That's potentially $750. So apply now, VSiN.com/GBank. That's VSIN.com/GBank. Subject to credit approval, terms and conditions do apply. Jensen, 17 players will be in Milwaukee at Green Bay, Lambeau Field, for the NFL draft. Do you buy or read into anything, again, of the guys like Shedeur Sanders who won't be there? Are we reading too much into it, or is there some method to the madness?
There is a little bit for some of the other guys, but I do feel it's a family decision. Again, like father, like son, that primetime was not there for his. Got to enjoy it from the comforts of home. I hope that Shedeur gets to do that around friends and family. Listen, there's a lot of pomp and circumstance surrounded with that night. There's a lot of asks, a lot of things that, the night goes so quickly for you. So in this scenario, probably a family decision. Good luck to him. Apparently from John Daigle, the draft starts at 6.
Ooh.
Will that be the case a week from tomorrow?
Dion with the greatest quote ever on draft day in Tallahassee. Were you glad that the Falcons drafted you? Yes. Because if Detroit had drafted me, I would ask for so much money, they'd have to put me on layaway. A numbers game is coming up next. Gil Alexander, Kelly Goodwin, don't go anywhere.